UN agency says Israeli forces fired on Gaza aid convoy. According to the Associated Press, the UN World Food Programme condemned violence in northern Gaza on Sunday, stating its 25-truck aid convoy came under fire from Israeli tanks, snipers, and other gunfire. The Gaza Health Ministry reported at least 80 Palestinians were killed while seeking food. The Israeli military disputed the figures, stating its soldiers fired warning shots when threatened by crowds, and has not allowed international media into Gaza to independently verify the competing claims. Russia launches massive aerial assault on Kyiv ahead of talks. According to the Associated Press, Russia unleashed one of its largest aerial attacks in months on Kyiv overnight, killing at least 2 people and wounding 15. The hours-long barrage, involving over 400 drones and 24 missiles, came just before UK and German officials were set to chair a meeting on military aid for Ukraine. The attack damaged a kindergarten, a supermarket, and a subway station entrance where civilians were sheltering, underscoring Kyiv's urgent need for air defense systems. Bangladesh Air Force training jet crashes into Dhaka school, killing 18. According to the Associated Press, a Chinese-made F-7BGI training aircraft of the Bangladesh Air Force crashed into the Milestone School and College campus in Dhaka on Monday. The incident killed at least 18 people, including the pilot, and injured 164 others, most of whom were students attending classes. The jet crashed shortly after takeoff and immediately caught fire. The cause of the crash, the deadliest in the capital in recent memory, is under investigation. Vietnam and Philippines brace for impact of Typhoon Wipha. According to the Associated Press, Vietnam is preparing for Typhoon Wipha, which is expected to make landfall early Tuesday with winds up to 166 km per hour, 103 miles per hour, prompting flight cancellations and evacuations. The storm has already proven deadly in the Philippines, where it intensified monsoon rains, killing at least 3 people and affecting over 800,000. Authorities in both countries are on high alert for flash floods and landslides. Ecuador extradites notorious gang leader Fito to the United States. According to the Associated Press, Ecuador on Sunday extradited José Adolfo Macias Villamar, the notorious leader of the Los Caneros gang known as Fito, to the United States. Macias, who was recaptured in June after a prison escape, faces charges in New York for importing thousands of pounds of cocaine. He is the first Ecuadorian citizen to be extradited from Ecuador to the U.S., a move President Daniel Noboa framed as a victory in his crackdown on organized crime. Widespread cell phone internet shutdowns reported across Russia. According to the Associated Press, dozens of Russian regions, from areas bordering Ukraine to Siberia, have experienced deliberate cell phone internet shutdowns in recent months. Officials claim the measures are necessary to counter Ukrainian drone attacks, which use cellular networks to operate. However, digital rights groups warn the unprecedented and widespread nature of the outages further curtails online freedom and is part of a broader Kremlin campaign to establish greater control over the internet. U.S. annual inflation rate rose to 2.7% in June. According to the Associated Press, the U.S. Labor Department reported that consumer prices increased 2.7% in June from a year earlier, an acceleration from the 2.4% annual rate recorded in May. On a monthly basis, prices climbed 0.3%. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices and is closely watched by economists, rose 2.9% year-over-year. The uptick in inflation could influence the Federal Reserve's decisions on potential interest rate cuts later this year. Japan's PM vows to tackle inflation despite election setback. According to the Associated Press, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has pledged to remain in office to address rising inflation and U.S. tariff threats, despite his ruling coalition losing its majority in the upper house election. Japan's economy is facing headwinds, with forecasts for 2025 showing modest real GDP growth of around 0.4% and core inflation remaining elevated at approximately 2.4%, well above the Bank of Japan's target. UK economic growth forecast at 1% amid persistent inflation. According to Reuters, economic forecasts for the United Kingdom project modest GDP growth of around 1% for 2025, with inflationary pressures remaining a key concern. COFACE expects UK inflation to peak at 3.5% in the third quarter of 2025 and stay above the Bank of England's 2% target throughout 2026. Rising labor costs, high energy prices, and global trade uncertainty are weighing on the outlook and contributing to a rise in corporate insolvencies. US EPA eliminates research office, announces thousands of layoffs. According to the Associated Press, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency announced Friday it is eliminating its Office of Research and Development and will reduce its workforce by over 3,700 employees, nearly 23% of its staff. The Trump administration stated the move will save nearly $750 million and create a new Office of Applied Science and Environmental Solutions. Critics argue that dismantling the agency's main scientific arm will have generational impacts on public health and environmental protection. Ford recalls nearly 700,000 Bronco Sport and Escape SUVs. According to the Associated Press, Ford is recalling more than 694,000 Bronco Sport and Escape vehicles in the U.S. because a cracked fuel injector could leak fuel or vapor, posing a significant fire risk. The recall covers certain 2021 to 2024 Bronco Sport and 2020 to 2022 Escape models equipped with 1.5-liter engines. Ford is developing a final remedy but will offer an interim software update to detect fuel pressure drops and alert drivers. China launches campaign to end deflationary price wars. According to Bloomberg, Chinese President Xi Jinping has initiated a campaign to regulate disorderly price competition and combat the industrial malaise of cutthroat price wars and overcapacity. The anti-involution effort aims to stabilize prices in sectors from electric vehicles to steel, which has helped boost investor sentiment in the onshore stock market. The CSI 300 index has outperformed Hong Kong's Hang Seng China Enterprises Index in July, reflecting hopes for improved corporate profitability. U.S. stock futures point to gains amid busy earnings week. According to the Associated Press, Wall Street futures pointed toward a higher open on Monday, with the S&P 500 and Nasdaq hovering near record highs ahead of a busy week of corporate earnings reports. So far, over 86% of the S&P 500 companies that have reported have surpassed expectations, fueling investor optimism. Major tech firms including Alphabet and Tesla, along with companies like Verizon and Domino's Pizza, are scheduled to release their results this week. European Central Bank expected to hold interest rates steady. According to Reuters, the European Central Bank is widely expected to keep its key interest rates unchanged at its meeting on July 24. After a series of rate cuts, policymakers appear to be in a wait-and-see mode as inflation hovers around the 2% target. Analysts suggest mounting risks from trade tensions with the U.S. and a stronger euro could prompt a potential rate cut in September, but a move this month is seen as unlikely. Bitcoin price soars above $123,000 on regulatory optimism. According to Bloomberg, the price of Bitcoin surged above $123,000, approaching all-time highs, amid growing optimism over regulatory breakthroughs in the United States. The passage of the Genius Act to regulate stablecoins has been interpreted by the market as a major step toward legitimizing the crypto industry. This positive sentiment has fueled a broader rally in digital assets, with traders anticipating increased institutional adoption and clearer rules for the sector. Meta and Mark Zuckerberg settle $8 billion investor lawsuit. According to Reuters, Meta Platforms and CEO Mark Zuckerberg have reached a surprise settlement in an $8 billion lawsuit brought by shareholders. The suit alleged that the company's board failed in its duties by allowing widespread privacy violations, including the Cambridge Analytica scandal. The settlement, whose terms were not disclosed, was reached just as the trial began, averting testimony from Zuckerberg and other high-profile executives about the company's internal handling of user data. U.S. to allow NVIDIA to resume selling key AI chips to China. According to the Associated Press, NVIDIA has received approval from the Trump administration to resume selling its H20 artificial intelligence chips to China, reversing an earlier ban. The H20 is a less powerful chip developed specifically to comply with U.S. export controls. The decision is reportedly linked to a broader trade deal in which China eased restrictions on rare earth magnet exports. The move marks a significant shift in U.S. tech policy toward China, from containment to a more transactional approach. President Trump signs Genius Act stablecoin regulation into law. According to the Associated Press, President Donald Trump on Friday signed the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act into law. This is the first major piece of U.S. legislation to create a federal regulatory framework for stablecoins, a type of cryptocurrency pegged to assets like the dollar. The bipartisan law sets consumer protection guardrails and rules for issuers, a milestone hailed by the crypto industry as a massive validation of its legitimacy. Microsoft warns of active attacks on unpatched SharePoint servers. According to the Hacker News, Microsoft is warning of active exploitation of a critical, unpatched zero-day vulnerability in its on-premises SharePoint server software. The flaw, tracked as CVE 2025-53770, allows for unauthenticated remote code execution and has already been used to compromise more than 75 servers belonging to corporations and government agencies. Microsoft is working on a security update and has provided mitigation guidance for affected organizations. Alaska Airlines resumes flights after system-wide IT outage. According to the Associated Press, Alaska Airlines resumed operations late Sunday after a system-wide IT outage grounded all of its and its subsidiary Horizon Air's flights for approximately 3 hours. The Seattle-based carrier apologized for the disruption and warned of residual impacts on its flight schedule as it works to reposition aircraft and crews. This is the second time in just over a year that a technology issue has forced the airline to halt its entire fleet.